What's up, everybody? Steve here. If you guys are interested in buying and flipping real estate, you are not going to want to miss this. I have Todd Sachs, who is a real estate professional. He's a real estate broker, but also a professional real estate investor. And he's going to talk about tips and tricks on flipping real estate. More importantly, he has a system called the 5 F's of successful house flipping. And Todd, I appreciate you being here, man.
Steve, thanks for having me, man. I'm happy to be on your show.
Yeah, thanks so much for
Definitely.
being here. So you and I have done a handful of collaborations on your channel as well. Real quickly, and I'm going to drop all the links below before we dive into this. How can people find you? Because I know you provide a ton of value in terms of real estate investing, and a lot of other topics that I think a lot of people gain value from. Where can people find you?
Well, you can check us out on YouTube, Sachs Realty YouTube channel. We post every Tuesday night. We have a Tuesday night podcast. A lot of times it's live. You can also check us out on saxrealty.com. Yeah, so we'd love to have your listeners check us out.
Beautiful, man. And as mentioned, I'll drop the links down in the description below for you guys to check out all of that, because you do want to follow this guy. He is bright and has a ton of experience in real estate and real estate flipping. So I know that people are squeezing you right now to write a book about flipping real estate, and the 5, and I'm assuming you're going to name this something along these lines, but the 5 F's of successful house flipping.
So many people are curious about flipping. And I think, one of the reasons is because we've been in an HGTV society for probably the last decade, last 15 years. They make it seem very easy. And in fact, it's not easy at all. It's very easy to lose. I've been involved in, over the last, I've been a contractor since 1989. Collectively, I've probably been involved in one way or another in a couple hundred flips, besides what I've done on my own and helping other clients. And I've probably been, as a general contractor, serving the residential housing market, I've probably done, 1,000 or more projects over the last 30 years. And, the difficult part of flipping is contracting. It's not just about finding the deal, it's getting it done. So, I kind of thinking about, what has made some of the most successful projects, because they all aren't successful, really came down to these 5 F's. And yeah, we can kind of dive in and talk about them. And hopefully people find value in it. And certainly I know you're a real estate broker. We have great networks between you and I, all up and down the Eastern Seaboard. So if people are interested in flipping and they're listening to us, they can reach out to either one of us. I know you have a lot of experience in it too, and hopefully we can point them in the right direction. And if anybody has any questions, just drop them in the comments. We'll be sure to try and get back to you, with some good sound advice.
Absolutely, for sure. So the first F that you have on this list is finding the deal. So let's talk about that.
And, you've heard it. So, it's kind of cliche, but in the flipping business, you make your profits generally on your buy. So it's kind of hard to reel it in. You're going to spend money in the flip process, the construction process. In fact, you're going to overspend your budget. I always tell people, plan on 15, 20% even of your construction budget, because very few times have I gotten into a flip where there hasn't been, or we didn't expect this. I'm in one right now, with all my experience at looking at, a lot of homes over the years. I didn't realize that 10 of the windows, they look like new windows, but 10 of them had blown seals. Cost me $1,000. I completely overlooked that in this project, but finding the deals is the key. And, a lot of people get hung up on investors. And as we're talking about investors right now, we're talking about what people are doing on large scale. So a lot of investors are not experienced. They're getting into it for the first time. So where are they looking? They're looking at auction sites, online auction sites, or they're looking at, Zillow or, Trulia or Realtor.com, or they're looking, specifically for bank-owned or foreclosures, bank-owned properties or foreclosures. I've actually found that that's like the hardest place to find them, because so many people are looking at those sources that they bid the prices up to a ridiculous price point, and then again trying to make it up on the build out side of things, and it never works. So some of the ways that we've been most successful are just a standard sale. They're not foreclosures. They are not a real estate owned, which is known as an REO. They're not, an auction at all. And they're just a standard sale. And a lot of times my best success has been from estate sales. So, you have one of the parents or both the parents have now passed. And, they've moved, the kids are maybe in different states. And these types of sales that I found, if you take even $10,000 and you break it up into 3 or 4 family members, it's not a lot of money, right, to net in their pocket. So I found that, if they're, to the point where they're distressed, where a retail buyer isn't looking at her, it's not ideal at that price point, it sits on the market for a little bit of time. That's been my biggest success through the years, is just a typical standard sale. Location's key, another cliche: location, location, location. It never, it trumps anything else, in my opinion, because if you're going to, right now, you're going to pay more than what we historically have for even flips, distressed property. You want to make sure it's in an area that's very desirable, and that the comps are there, right? I look for neighborhoods that have turned over in the last 12 months 6%. So that's kind of like my rule of thumb. I'll identify a property. I will do a polygon around that property. And you have to be smart, guys, when you're doing this. And, it helps to have a good agent help you do this, but you can't just take a radius when you're doing this of a property and cross major roadways. So you need to keep the comps when you're looking at, well, what's a nice house renovated sell for, or move-in ready sell for in this neighborhood? So I directly take that location and I draw a polygon that really represents that true neighborhood. So if you cross another major intersection, let's just say some people might do a quarter of a mile, and they broaden that, what happens is you've now gone into a different neighborhood where that price can throw you off because you'll never get it where you are. So I always draw a polygon, and I try and include about 200 to 250 houses in that polygon. And then what I'm looking for is a 6% turnover in that neighborhood in the last 12 months. That's going to give me really 2 metrics. It's going to tell me that it's a moving neighborhood, that things are selling in that neighborhood, but it's also going to tell me what the current prices are. And it's going to tell me that it's a desirable neighborhood for people at that price point to move in, as opposed to looking at something where, there's been one sale in the last year or year and a half. That makes it a lot more difficult to, market that property and gauge what your comps are going to be. The other thing in selecting, yeah, go ahead.
That's a great point too, because I've had these discussions, more like debates or arguments, with appraisers, because sometimes appraisers are using the neighborhood next door, but it's a completely different neighborhood. It's, maybe more rundown or whatever, which is going to bring your valuation down. And I think that that's a hell of a point, because people have to understand that when you're looking at real estate, it's very micro. You really have to dial in and making sure that you're utilizing the neighborhood at hand when you guys are evaluating your real estate, whether that's, a good purchase or not.
Definitely. And, another thing is, when you're looking now, I'm going to talk to as if, our listeners, they don't have their real estate license. See, I have my my real estate license, you have your real estate license. It's a lot different for us to look for properties. When you're with, you don't have a license and you're trying to get into this, you need to select, some agents that are skilled at helping investors so that they can help you with exactly what you're looking for. And if they don't have the experience working with investors, then you really need to be directing them, which is kind of tough when you don't know what you're doing. So so when some of my best deals, now I'm going to talk to you like I'm not a licensee right now. I'm going to talk to you like, I'm an investor, because if you're a real estate agent, you may be looking at part of your profit being the purchase commission, right? So maybe it is $3,000, maybe it's $5,000 more that you can pick up, depending on what your price point is as a licensee. But I want to talk to you because some of my deals, even after having my real estate license, so I've only been licensed since 2005. I've been a contractor since 1989. So to give you an idea, I was working with real estate agents well before I ever got my license. So, and I hear people say all the time, should I get my license? And that's something that you have to decide, but I wouldn't get your license to pick up an extra $3,000 or $5,000 on necessarily the flip, saving it on a buy. You save a lot when you go to sell it. Yes. But let's just pretend like you don't have a license right now. And let's just talk straight. Even with me having a license, a lot of times I gave the commission on the purchase to the listing agent.
Yep.
Okay. So guys, I'm going to tell you, they're commission based.
Yep.
So when you come to a real estate agent, you say, look, I'm not interested in the commission. And I've said that as a licensee, even. You keep the commission. I don't know what your deal is with your seller. I'm not worried about it. So you can keep the whole thing. That's fine. It puts that agent, I've had them rooting for me, now as a broker, that's not cool. Right. But, talking it from an investor standpoint, you don't care. You want to save, you want to get the deal and you want to get a good deal. So a lot of times if you go to the listing agent on it and you say, look, I want to buy it for investment, and you can find out what the motivations are, because a lot of the biggest mistakes that I've made and my clients have made is assuming what's going to get the deal done. And that always isn't the case, because if you come in there and say, look, I'm going to settle in 2 weeks and I'm going to pay cash and this and that and the other, if it's a situation where the family members have passed and they have a house full of furniture, that's going to stress them out. They're not going to be ready in 2 weeks to get out of that house. So when you're talking to the agent, kind of feel them out, like what are some of the repairs needed in the house, even before you go look at it, kind of set the stage off, well, because here's what the agent might say. Yeah, well, it needs a lot of work. Really? Well, how did you come up with the price? Well, it was the price they wanted. The agent might say, I know it's on the high side. They may tell you things like this, right? They're not supposed to, but guys, let me tell you, they do it all. I mean, agents, they do it.
Let them talk.
And so if you're talking to them, what's that?
I said, let them talk.
Let them talk. Let them talk. Find out what the motivation is. And then guys, when you're going to go look at that house, also with location, I like things that are close to supply stores, close to your home, or your workplace, so that you can go there frequently, check the progress. So don't pick something, people are like, oh yeah, well, you can buy in Nashville and you're in Georgia. I don't recommend that. Buy a place to flip that's close by your house or your job, or you can check up on it frequently. And I love it when it's close to Home Depot or Lowe's or something like that, building supply companies. But once you find that, then it comes down to budgets. So I always recommend, if you have no construction experience, take a contractor with you. And I have a good sheet too. If anybody wants it, they want to reach out. I have a spreadsheet that if you reach out to me, I'll send it to you for free. That basically can help you walk through the different aspects of flipping that, or looking at that house and, checking off what it may need. And now I have on there, check the window seals. So by the way,
And the budget is extremely important. I mean, if you don't budget correctly, then that all that profit can go away, and actually you can lose money. And I mean, I've lost money on certain real estate transactions, certain flips, and it's it, twofold. It sucks, but it's a good learning lesson. And but you know, I see other investors do the same, and then they put their tail between their legs and they never do another real estate deal because they got hurt so bad. So you know, the budgeting is paramount.
Steve, I lost, and I was just telling somebody this a couple weeks ago, when I opened up my brokerage 4 years ago. I had bought a flip, and I just, you know, I shouldn't have bought it. I mean, I was, you know, busy setting up my business, Sachs Realty, and I went and looked at it probably a week after I settled. You know, I went to the property. I just finished a flip up the street. I knew the area was good. It was hot. This property came on the market. I bought it quick. It's one of those things where you have to strike fast. And, you know, it was probably 40 minutes away from my office, over an hour away from my house. And I ended up selling it. I went to do a walkthrough with my contractor that I was using to do the flip. And when I was opening my eyes in a different light with my workload, starting a business, I said, there's no way I'm going to have time for this one. And it's going to be way over budget, because I was seeing, I mean, after years and years and years experience, I still made a mistake. And I made the best decision was to just cut my losses without even doing it. And I lost almost $30,000 and was glad. Yeah, it just gives you, you know, to your point, you know, you get into it. I could have lost $30,000 and spent 6 months of time on top of that.
Yep.
You know, so it is important. Budgeting is important. You know, location selection is important. You know, I mean, as we get into this, I mean, flipping is definitely, there's a lot of risk. It is not what you see on TV.
I couldn't agree with that more.
Now, I will say I have bought flips and kept them. And I'll tell you a little secret. This isn't really public yet, because I'm doing a video documenting this flip that I'm in the middle of. And we just decided, I say we, my wife and I, who's very involved in the decisions that I make. And so we got into this flip, and we really like the property, and we think it's going to be worth a lot more in the next 5 years than we'll get out of it now. And we decided that we're going to Airbnb it. Actually, from our last, you know, discussion together, Steve, we're going to try our hand at an Airbnb.
Cool.
You know, but I've done that. I've bought flips that I've decided to just keep for rentals too. I mean, if you get into a situation where you've spent more than what you may make at that moment, and you can, one way to recover is just to hold on to it and put a tenant in there.
Yep. I agree for sure.
Yep.
That's cool. So the next F, finding the cash.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that? Are you using all your own cash, or what are you?
Cash is king. Cash is king.
Yeah.
So not always. I started out flipping using bank money, and that was pretty painful. Mm-hmm. The way that kind of works is, so that's an option, and it's not one that I recommend. I say that most of the time banks kill the deals, because number one, when you're submitting your contract, if you're going for bank financing, the sellers, especially in today's market, they're looking at that going, even if your price is, you're giving them a couple $5,000 more, it's not worth it for them to risk the process, going through the appraisal, the underwriting process, the time it goes to loan committee. It can take weeks to get approved, right? At the earliest. So usually financing commitment is going to take you 30 or 45 days. not only that, but you're going to have construction draws if you're looking for the bank to give you the money. So they're going to do maybe a purchase, round of funding where you buy it, where you put your money down. And a lot of times the banks will finance 100% of the repairs, but they're going to put you through a process known as a draw schedule. And a lot of times they'll let you create that draw schedule. But what that means is whoever the bank is utilizing to appraise a lot of times that property, they also want them to go back at these intervals, draw intervals, and do inspections to make sure before they cut you that draw loose, that it actually, the work is done, right? Yeah. So that can
be in the ass.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So then you have, a couple other ways that you can do it. You can do private finance, private lending, which is a little different than hard money. It's kind of like a cross between a hard money lender and a bank, a federally insured bank. Hard money lender, some type of institutional money. Their underwriting guidelines might be a lot easier for you than the bank, but they're not quite as expensive as hard money. But you do need things like good credit, things like that. The more you do with those private lenders, the better the pricing structure seems to get over time. But you need cash in the bank. That's really what they're looking for. And then a lot of those private finance sources, they can actually do an appraisal just looking on sites like Zillow. I mean, they might take something like that and be okay with what you're borrowing versus, they may get somebody local to come and check it out. They may not. Your hard money guys are going to be the most expensive, right? They're going to probably be the highest in points. And what a point is a percentage of the actual purchase or overall borrowing amount. So for instance, if you're going to borrow $100,000 and it's 2 points, $2,000 will be the point fee that you pay. A lot of times it's 5, 6, 7, 8 points, depending on what you're borrowing. And then you're going to have your interest rate that will depend on, what they want as far as a guaranteed return of interest. So a lot of these hard money lenders, if they lend you $100,000 and it only takes you 4 months to flip the property, they may charge you the whole year of interest. So you have to be mindful of that and ask those questions. But the best way of doing it is either get a home equity line of credit on your house or a property. If you have equity, you can write your check yourself, pay it as, interest payments only as you need it, and then pay it off, having the cash, or friends and family, borrow from friends and family.
What if I'm just starting out? I don't have any contacts. I'm young, maybe not even young, maybe I'm old, just starting out. I don't have any money. I don't have, I'm just getting by paycheck to paycheck. What do you say to that person?
You have to have something. I mean, this is number one. Most lenders know that this is not a slam dunk business, right? So, if you're just starting out, I would say your best bet would be, you're going to have credit, some kind of credit, or you have to have cash. So you have to have something. You're not going to do it. Look, it's been done. There are probably people that argue with me, and we may even see some of those comments where they say, I've had nothing and I made bazillion dollars. I believe you have to have something. You either have to have credit, you have to have a good job, because if you're going with traditional lending, you need to file your taxes and you need to have income to offset your debt. But the best way I've seen people go at this is buy a distressed property and live in it. Use it as your primary residence. There are programs out there that you can do where they have renovation loans, that are very friendly, but you have to have a job. You have to be able to pay the mortgage payment. And then there are certain parameters in putting the deals together that you need to make sure that, you know, a lot of the times that you're hiring licensed contractors, well, all the time, and that the contractor has to break it down, you know, to get those renovation loans with like a materials and a labor price for the renovation. So there's certain, you know, hoops that you have to jump through. But, you know, if you're listening and you have no cash and you have, you know, zero credit, then I hope you have, you know, family or friends that could lend you the money to get you started, because it'd be difficult, not impossible, but difficult to, you know, purchase real estate to get into this flipping game.
And that's actually how I started flipping. Was my first property I bought for myself to live in, fixed it up, and I rented the rooms out. So I lived for free. And that's kind of how I got my foot in the door. However, other strategies, because even then I didn't have really any money at all. I was able to get that with a FHA loan, got a seller credit, but you know, I had to put 3.5% down. But even then, I was, you know, a broke college kid still trying to make it in real estate. Other ways that I was able to accumulate wealth was going out there and find, you know, you got to have hustle. And I was going out there and I was finding other deals and I was locking them up and I was flipping the contracts and making that spread. And once I started doing that, that opened up a world of opportunity. And I'm talking to people that just don't have any connections. That opened up a world of opportunity, because once I started finding the deals, those investors that had the money, they started to work with me on all different levels. And you don't need many investors. Once they gain your trust, then they gain your trust of finding the right deals. Then you can partner up with these people. You can work out all different partnership agreements with them, and then the sky's the limit. So I think the only thing I would add to that is, outside of like, you know, having a job, credit, money, everything else, have that hustle. If you find the deals, the money is out there.
Yeah. You know, yeah, I mean, wholesaling is definitely a way of doing it. You know, I don't know a whole lot about wholesaling. You know, I do know, I mean, I've purchased properties from wholesalers before. I have agents that do it. I have clients that do it. You know, you do need to send postcards and do a phone campaign. I mean, you know, you will spend some money doing it, I would imagine. But yeah, I mean, there are ways that you could do that to, you know, that's not really flipping. You know, that's flipping a contract, you know,
Yeah.
which is fine. I mean, hey, if you can make $5,000 or $10,000, I would say, you know, be within your means. If you're going to borrow money, especially if you're going to family or friends, don't take them a project where there could be a lot of risk.
Yeah.
You know, look for things that need minimal repairs where you can do the work. You know, if you had the ability to paint and caulk and clean and tile and do some of these things, you can go on YouTube and find, you know, a lot of ways to do these renovations that need very minimal skills. You know, I wouldn't recommend knocking load-bearing walls out, building additions, things like that. But if you're looking for floor plans that make sense, that don't need a whole lot of stuff moved around, you know, you're not walking into a place where it's a complete disaster, you know, you have a lot better chances of having somebody believe in you and invest in you. And even if you have to split the profits or the majority of the profits or most of the profits, and you just make a small salary out of doing it, you can probably encourage some investors that way, you know?
I like that, man. I like that a lot. Don't be greedy when you're working this business. You got to make sure that you're taking care of other people, and it'll come back around for sure.
Exactly. Yep.
The third F, finding the contractors. Bum bum bum.
Right, which is the big one where I got into, you know, where we started this. You know, I've been a contractor since 1989. I don't even know how many employees I've had. I mean, I can't, it would be impossible for me without adding up, every tax year and W-2s, but labor is the issue, right? When you're dealing with contractors, because depending on the size of the contractor, they're depending on good, skilled and non-skilled labor to do these jobs. And it's easy to not be happy with what you're getting. And this is probably the number one, and it happens to me almost in every project. I have to say, and all of my clients' projects, I have an agent right now that is involved in 2 flips that are supposed to be finished last week. And, they're paying by the day for labor. And so now you're talking about, if things aren't done on time. So this is the part that always gets people. They hire the wrong people. They don't know how to hire the contractor. They don't know how to fire the contractor when they realize that they picked the wrong contractor, and it just keeps getting worse. My biggest problem in my last 2 flips has been painters. I know this sounds crazy, like painters, like big deal, painter. It is a big deal because this is finish work. So, I got into my last 2 flips ago, the painter ran off with my money. Guys, I've been in business for 32 years. It wouldn't happen to me. It happened to me. So, what happens is you get involved in a project. They want a little bit of money for this or that, or pick up materials. They weren't showing up. This is a big thing. They weren't showing up on the job. I would literally go I handed the guy a check. This is when I fired him. The project, I think, was $4,700. I was in $3,000 of the $4,700, and it was a complete disaster. I gave him a deposit to get started. He hit me up for some money as they were doing the job. When I gave him the last check, I drove around the block. I forgot something, and I went back for it, and he was gone already. Within 10 minutes, he took my check and was out of there, and I could never get him back again. And this was a guy that I used on probably 10 houses. So, this is where, you really have to decide, how are you going to get your flip completed? There are 2 ways of doing it. One is you hire a general contractor to come in and give you a turnkey service, right? It's going to be more money, but if the numbers work, if you take that contractor with you and include them in your process, and it's a reputable contractor that does flips, right? They've done it at scale. They understand it. You can find them out there. Use Facebook not marketplace, but Facebook groups. I have a lot of clients that find contractors this way. Get referrals, get recommendations. Stop by projects that are in the neighborhood that are being, flipped, construction projects. That's probably the safest bet, is to get a guy, woman, whoever's, not just men that are in this business, but get a general contractor that will give you a turnkey service for a flat price, that have insurance and have reviews. You'll make less money, but you won't deal with the headaches, because it'd be completely up to them. And usually if painter A doesn't work out, they have painter B, C, and D on standby that they can call in and get the job done and get it done on time. If you're going to take the role of doing the flip yourself, you're going to general contract this flip, you're going to hire the trades, you have to do the same thing. You have to check referrals. You have to get insurance. You have to make sure they have insurance. Look at some of the jobs that they've done. Talk to some of the people that they've worked for. I mean, this sounds like common sense. I don't do it all the time. And I find out whenever I get busy and give up that rule, it always comes back to get me. Yeah. And then the other thing that I would say, on the contracting, if you're going to do it yourself, maybe you buy the materials separately and pay the labor, so you're not writing those checks up front. At least you're minimizing some of your risk there. But yeah, that's the big one, Steve.
Yeah.
That's the big one,
I think
especially.
I think you mentioned before too about somebody paying per day, and I steer clear of that kind of payout. I pay per job. I say, this is what I want you to do. What's your labor cost on it? I primarily will buy materials and just do labor unless they can get a phenomenal deal on materials. But I steer clear of hourly or any kind of daily pay. And what's your thought on assuming the job is not crazy big, but having a good licensed handyman that is pretty well rounded that can do a lot of things?
Yeah, I think a handyman is good as long as they can pull the necessary permits.
Yeah.
So, where I find is the handyman wants to do the plumbing, the electrical, the HVAC, he wants to do all these different things for you and probably has the skills to do it. The problem that I find is that now, if you're going to flip that property, what we're seeing is in some cases, they're looking up to see if permits were pulled in that recent renovation. And
Yep.
that's where it can come back to get you. So do I see it happen all the time? I don't see requests for permits all the time, but if there's a risk of doing it, you're going to pay a lot more down the road. I say get the permits. My electrician, I'll give you an example. I mean, one of the flips that I did not too long ago, the only thing I did was pull new circuits for ceiling fans and a microwave. And he's like, you want to get a permit for 3 ceiling fans and a microwave? And I'm like, yep. Because for me, it's not worth it. It's nothing. Cost, say, $150 even for the permit and filing. It's worth its weight in gold for me in knowing, A, it's done right. It was inspected by an inspector. And I don't ever have to worry about, the agent on the other side saying, this looks like a new flip. Were there any permits pulled? So, but getting back to what you were saying about the flat rate, I will go time and material on a job with a labor if I can monitor the job very closely. And there are people that I know that deliver consistently for me. So for instance, if I'm paying $50 an hour per guy, I have a 3-man crew, it's $150. I know, that they're going to work fast, diligently, and that sometimes will save me money versus having them flat rated. But if you aren't going to be there to watch the job and what's happening, and you're concerned about them going outside smoking cigarettes and being on the phone while you're paying $150 an hour for a 3-man crew, or whether they took a half-hour lunch or drove to the supply store, I agree. Flat rate it, best way to go, and don't pay the majority of the money until it's done.
Yeah, absolutely not. Especially if they're picking up material, obviously I'll usually upfront that expense, but it's rare that I even do a deposit. And a lot of the contractors we work with, we've developed relationships and trust over the years. But if you're just starting out, yeah, you got to be very, very cautious. And another thing too that's worked out well is if you're in a neighborhood and you're looking at certain properties, you got a property in contract and you see other properties being renovated, go knock on that door, talk to the owner, talk to the contractors, see who's there, talk to the owner and find out how well they do. And usually people are very helpful and they're happy to refer a good contractor out as well. So and that they work that area specifically, so it might be worth a shot doing that.
And work with people that you have a good personality or good relationship with. Talk to the people and find out who they are, because not all contractors are created equally. I mean, some of them can be mean.
Yeah.
They can be rough to work with. They don't think customer service is important. So ask some key questions. I always say every answer is lying within 4 questions from the answer. So if you think about what it is, don't be afraid to ask those questions, because it will tell you the way they answer, or the answer that they give you should give you a feeling of whether it's somebody you should be working with or hiring.
All right, Todd, the fourth, finding the listing agent. What do you got there?
So we're talking about people not being created equally. Real estate agents aren't created equally as well. So the big, and this is something that I kind of have a pet peeve with because I'm in this business. So, I'm constantly dealing with real estate agents, my own agents, and agents on the other side of the table. And, I believe as an investor, first and foremost, you need a full-time agent. And if you're a real estate agent, you're listening to this, this may offend you, but I have a problem when my agent isn't available. And a lot of times people that have, real estate as their side hustle, when we're talking about my money and my profitability as an investor, and I need to know that I can get you, that the agents, the buying agents can get a hold of you. And, if anybody's calling off the sign, that they can get a hold of you. And, a lot of times there are people that have real estate licenses that are in lockdown with their job. They can't even take their phones in sometimes or get on computers and things like that, maybe for 8 or 9 hours a day.
Yep.
The biggest mistake that I see is that people use their friends or family, and it is not always the best thing to do. When you're selecting an agent for your listing, that agent should be the neighborhood expert. They should know who your buyer is. They should know exactly, who that buyer is and the price they're going to get you for your property. You want to have an idea about it going into it, but having that agent on board somewhere in the middle or the early part of that build out, listen to what they have to say. I've gone into clients that are flipping houses. I've told them colors to pick that are hot. I've helped them select light fixtures. I've told them what people are looking for in that specific area, what's hot, whether you should be finishing a basement or not, whether that's important, right? Because basements are expensive. If you don't need to finish the basement to get, the same amount of profitability out of the property, maybe don't do it if it's not going to add. So you want to interview your agents very carefully. You want to make sure they know the area very well, not inside and out, not somebody that's coming from 35, 40 minutes away. So, for instance, in our area, let's just say Columbia, Maryland. If I were talking to an agent, I would say, how many listings have you taken on in the last 12 months in Columbia, Maryland? If they can't tell you that they took any listings in Columbia, Maryland in the last year, you may want to find another agent. If they say something like, well, I'm licensed in a whole state. Oh yeah, I can manage Columbia, Maryland. They're going to have a hard time understanding who my buyer is.
Yep.
Who helping me maximize my return on that flip. And then,
sorry.
And then I would also say, Steve, there are a couple rules of thumbs that I always go by. Even now, I recommend this. Real estate agents in the past, and I don't know about in Florida, where you are, Steve, but here in Maryland, we used to do brokers opens like everybody did it back in the day. On Wednesdays was the brokers open day. And I can remember my office where I held my license before I started my own company. We would actually caravan. We would go around and we would go see, we'd have our sales meeting Wednesday. Afterwards, we'd hit the brokers opens and we would want to see what inventory was available, but we like to eat. So, they would do lunches, desserts. I mean, sometimes agents would collaborate and have brokers opens where you go to several ones. I always believe in doing that, even today. It gives you, the agent, a couple of opportunities to get that property into the marketplace. So a couple things you want to ask for, will you do coming soon? Here, we can do coming soon up to 21 days, up to 2 years on new construction, but up to 21 days before that property goes live. Now, you can't show it. The agent can't show it. But if they're marketing that, getting it out in the MLS as a coming soon, up to 21 days, You want them to say they're going to do that. You also want to say, you want to ask them, would you do a broker's open? And if they tell you it doesn't work and they won't do it for you, honestly, I'd find an agent that will, because we have a database of 15, 16,000 agents around our markets, our 9 markets that we serve. When we have a property that comes in, if I can blast that out to even 5,000 agents in that county, inviting them over to lunch, it gets my clients' property front and center of that agent. They may have somebody that might be interested in it. We want to get that pre-launch going as quick as we can, and, make that coming out of the gate with a big impact.
And
the other thing,
and let's face it too, listing agents, or not real estate agents in general, they're not all on MLS every single day looking at the market. And they're not all like, me personally, I'm on probably 30 different drip campaigns from our MLS, different neighborhoods, different property styles, all that. And I get notified as new listings come up, price reductions. And a lot of agents just they're not doing that. And there's agents out there that might have a buyer for that property. So when your blast goes out, it hits their email and notifies
100%.
them, and it doesn't hurt,
I just had that happen. And I don't unsubscribe. We send out emails. I have other agents send me emails. I don't unsubscribe because I give them the courtesy. I don't want them to unsubscribe for me. And, if they're an agent that, has the right attitude, that they're in this business to crush it and serve. That's the key, guys. Serve, because that's what we do. I had a email just like you're talking about, Steve. A new property hit the market. Got an email blast. I had a buyer that had gone cold, and it's actually a listing. It could be a listing and a purchase, and they cooled off. And I saw this was almost identical to what they were looking for. I got the email. I said, wow. I sent it to my client or my prospect. They called me up and said, let's go see it. Can we see it tomorrow? Now, we didn't buy that house, but what it did is it put me back in the, mind of that seller, right? That they want to buy. And now we're back on the market again, actively looking for places. So, that's what a good agent's going to do. They're going to market that in every way that they can. And then the other thing is you want to hit the ground running with a open house. So a broker's open is for the trade.
Yeah.
Right? So you guys listening, a broker's open is for agents. It is a opportunity for agents to come by, preview it, give their thoughts. A lot of times we do gift cards. We'll give out a gift card, drop your business card. They fill out a form. Is it priced right? Do they like it? Blah, blah, blah. What would they have done differently? If they turn that in, drop their card, they have an opportunity to win a $50 Visa card or something for getting them there. And we feed them, right? Yeah. The next thing is the open houses. So we believe have open houses Saturday, Sunday, until it's sold. If it's your money, nobody's living in it, it's vacant. Find an agent that will have it open every week until it's under contract.
And Todd, I want to touch on something, a quick story associated with real estate agents, and I'm going to put my real estate broker hat on. So we were working with a client, and it's a husband and wife, and they're looking for a vacation rental investment property, and we were like, fine. So we put a lot of time into, me and Jolie, we were putting a lot of time into scouting properties. We were going and previewing properties before they even came down from their home state. Okay. And doing all this additional work for them. And finally, we narrowed it down to one specific community across the street from the beach. And once we narrowed it down, we were like, there's no inventory. And what we do is we go above and beyond. We try to find off-market deals for our clients who are going to be loyal. And I exhausted all opportunity. I went after, expired listings, contacting the brokers, not directly to the sellers, because I always like to work with brokers in that sense. Contacting them on withdrawn, terminated listings, all that. So couldn't get anywhere. And so I called the buyers and I said, what we can do here is we can mail the entire community on your behalf and see if we can drum up some business. So we mailed, we got a handful of calls, we got them into contract, sold them the property. They actually had an appraisal done on it. The appraisal came in. They basically had immediate $35,000 of equity. Okay. Without doing anything. This is awesome. This is their own bank appraisal. Okay. They close on the property and they're fixing it up and everything else. And they got it fixed up. They got it in a rental program. We hooked them up with the vacation rental company that we deal with. Like, it was like service at its best, right? Hooked them up with contractors, everything, right? So over this time period, she keeps emailing me asking for an updated market analysis of the property. I did this probably a half dozen times. And I got to a point, I'm like, let's just go ahead and list this thing. You're showing motivation that you are interested in cashing out. And by this time, the property, I'd say they had about $70,000 of equity. And this is after back end closing costs, commissions, everything. So she ends up listing with a discount brokerage, and sells the property. And I saw it on the market, and I reached out. I had a better relationship with her husband. I reached out to him like, well, what happened here? I was like, what's going on? And he's like, and he felt terrible. He was like, I told her not to, I was against it, all that. I'm like, well, you still had to sign that listing agreement too. But anyway, it's besides the case. So they sell it, and then they call me up because they're back in the market to buy another beach property in a more higher end community on the beach. And they called me up and they're like, Steve, we really want to work with you, this and that. And I politely responded. I said, I appreciate it and everything else, but you guys can find another real estate broker to work with. And the reason why I bring that story up is if you have somebody that's working on your behalf, finding you a good deal, the right deal, you don't be greedy. They should have provided, and I could have negotiated our commission some or whatever. I'm not greedy, but because they essentially burnt that bridge with me, why am I going to go and spend my time as well as my team's time to find them another property at a fantastic deal when they are not doing the reciprocal to us and our team and everything else? And we got, we have people on our team that are, there's money being spent in all different directions. So the point I'm making is, and this is kind of going back to Todd saying earlier, where when he's buying a property, he'll say, look, I'm a real estate broker, but you keep all the commission. That's what you want to do if you're going to get into this business, is take care of people, because it comes back 100-fold. And to wrap up the story with this, that guy to this day still reaches out every so often. He'll tag me on Facebook and saying to his friend, reach out to this guy. He's the best broker in South Florida. He feels so bad. But you know what? I don't want to work with people like that are that they don't respect us and our time. And people watching this right now might think differently, and that's completely fine, but that's not how I do business. And if Todd's taking care of me, I'm taking care of that guy. If he's not taking care of me, no problem, we're out. I'll find other people that are going to take care of me better. And that's how I live my life. That's how I live my life, business, professionally as well as privately. And I think people need to understand that. Don't be a dick.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm glad you said that. I mean, you don't burn your bridges. I mean, that's a perfect example. I mean, somebody that's bending over backwards, looking out for their best interest, and that goes with the real estate agent, that goes with the contractor, that goes with, everybody, the cleaner, the staging company, that anybody that's involved. You want to build a team, and people have to make money. I mean, so if you think about what just happened, and I mean, maybe they saved a couple bucks at the end of the day. But here's the thing, guys, that I want, and I'm glad you said this, because what I always tell people when they're wanting to question fees or services, okay, what I always say is, what isn't the most important part in this case what you put in your pocket? Not always is looking at one aspect of the deal increasing what you put in your pocket, because you don't know. So what you have to do is then go to service. Am I getting the service that, because you can always find, if I go in the store and I buy, I mean, I give an example. Let's say a mug. I'm looking for something on my desk and I don't have anything to give you. But let's say I go into a store and I buy a mug. That exact same mug is in another store for 50 cents less. Well, I know I'm getting the same mug, right? You save the 50 cents. Unless your time is, more valuable and you don't feel like driving 3/4 of a mile to save 50 cents. But in a service-oriented business like what we provide, you can't look at it as the price directly. You have to look at it as the whole deal. Are you achieving your goals? Are you, is it easy for you? Is it hassle-free? Are they serving me? If you have people that are doing that for you, you would be a complete idiot to, try and save a couple bucks when you don't even really know if you are.
Yep. Don't be short-sighted in the real estate game if you want to have a long-term career or business out of this.
100%.
Number 5, the last F, for sale strategies. What do you got?
All right. So
when you're reselling the property, right?
Yep. So one of the things that that you sort of touched on with your letters, and that I didn't mention, is when you're starting out your flip, what I always do is I always go, and even for my clients, and I tell my agents to do this for theirs, I always go to the neighbors when that is getting ready to take, as soon as they sign the documents, go to the neighbors, knock on the door. Hey, how's it going? My name's Todd. I just bought the house next door. My plan is to fix it up, resell it. Hopefully it's going to be a great thing for the neighborhood. But if anything should happen between now and then, it'll take me 3 months. I'm estimating from start to finish. That offends you. Would you please do me a favor and reach out and give me a call? Trash blows in your yard. The guys start too early in the morning on Saturday or Sunday. They show up banging away at 6:30. Would you, I can't guarantee they won't do it. I'm going to try everything I can, but if it offends you, will you give me a call? And I start that relationship from day one. If you want to do more things, stick a sign in there, we buy houses, with your phone number on it. It's a great thing to do, because somebody down the street's driving back and forth. They go, yeah, I'm thinking about selling mine too, or whatever. And it's distressed. When you're finished your project, invite that neighborhood in to see it. So the same people that you reached out, you knocked on the doors, you're communicating with, give them an opportunity to preview it, because they might know who the buyer is. They may have a friend, and if you reach out to them early on and let them know what your intentions are, you might find you're 2 weeks into it, 5 weeks into it. They knock on the door or call you up and say, hey, can I check it out? A friend of mine, has been looking at moving in this neighborhood. So be very friendly with the neighbors. Don't go in and somebody, takes offense or, calls the county on you. because they didn't think that you had a permit or you don't have a permit and they call the county. Don't take offense to it. Try and win the neighborhood over it. Only in the long run will help you. I've seen it where the people have gone over to the prospects intentionally and said, oh, you want to know about the construction of this house? This guy did a terrible job. He did a shoddy job. He did he built this thing. It rained on it for a month and a half. He didn't show back up again. Really? Piss the neighbors off? I promise you, man, it will not be good, right? But for sale strategies, you have a vacant home. I get all the time, should you stage the home? I'm going to tell you, stage the home 100% of the time. It's, in my opinion, one of the most important things that you can do, because people have very little imagination. If it's an open space, they may not know how to outfit it, or you can help them with that. If it is looks like a small room, but it really isn't, but when you're glancing at it, they may look at it and go, it's a small room. The furniture makes it look bigger. If it's done tastefully, use, very minimal furniture, but if you hire a stager, they're going to know what they're doing. Look at some of their work. The important things are the living room, the dining room, the kitchen, all the bathrooms, and the primary bedroom. They're the main areas that you want to focus on staging. Use some floor coverings, hang things on the wall. Don't be afraid to do it. Put little nails, they do it. They patch very easily. But what you want people to do is visualize themselves making it a home. And when it's completely raw, a lot of people have a hard time doing that. And I don't want to exclude those people that have no imagination. Yeah. I want to include them in my ability to sell to them. The other thing is I like light fragrances, something that gives a little bit of a sense of a fresh smell. If it's coming up at holiday time, maybe a little cinnamon smell, maybe it's some potpourri, nothing overbearing, but just something to attract to the senses. Obviously make sure the grass is cut. Don't forget the outside. Leaves are cleaned up this time of year. Make it neat and tidy. And I always put a little sign. So a couple of things I do. I put a sign on the kitchen counter that says, "Thank you for previewing my listing." I give them a list of things that they may have missed in the listing details. So if they were looking online, I want them to take something with them. So, if the agent isn't going to do it for you, you do it. Print it out, have the picture, a couple pictures so that they remember about your house, and then tell them about all those upgrades that you did that are maybe behind the walls, brand new wiring throughout, the new ductwork or HVAC or something that they would miss on that listing. Make sure that they can take that with them. And then I always give them a bowl of chocolates and ask them to help themselves to refreshments in the refrigerator. So I, do little cans of different kinds of sodas, small bottles of water, anything that I can do to make them relax, make them feel good about it. And the other thing I'll mention here in the for sale strategies is make sure that your agent is using room dimensions. So we do Matterports, which are 3D tours. There are a couple different types of 3D tours out there, but basically they can walk through the house. But we also do floor planning. It shows the room dimensions. So a lot of times with just pictures, people, again, when they're shopping at home, 2 o'clock in the morning while you're asleep, they can't connect those pictures together to see that open floor plan or that way that the living room and dining room flow together, or the kitchen living room flows together. So, and dimensions, make sure that people know what the room sizes are, so that they know if their furniture fits.
You don't spare any expense, man. And for everybody watching, it's not, again, it's being short-sighted. If you do these necessary things up front, your property is going to probably sell quicker, and you're probably going to sell for a higher dollar amount. And that's where a lot of people don't understand. They're like, oh, it's going to cost this. But you know what? If you're paying interest on that money and your property sits on the market for another 30 days or 15 days or 2 months, how much more are you paying in interest on that debt? And then, the purchase price, if somebody's coming in, they're like, I can't really see how my furniture is going to fit here, but let's throw an offer out there. And are you going to get highest and top dollar if you don't furnish it and stage it up?
Yep. Time is not on your side, is it?
No, you want to get in and out as quickly as possible on a real estate flip. And
Yep.
so,
And the longer it sits on the market, the probably the less amount you'll make. And two other things I want to say, Steve. One is, in that all the things that I've mentioned here, you've mentioned, these are all, we want impact. As an agent, as an investor, I want impact. I want as many eyeballs before I put it on the market, which is why coming soon is important. I want as many agents knowing about it. I want as many people walking through on Saturday and Sundays open houses. And I want as many people interested in my flip or my client's flip as possible, because that is how you get overpriced offers and, you get them competing for the best terms. But the other thing I was going to say, one other thing, and what was it? I know it was important.
well, I'll add to that while you're thinking about it. Buying real estate when it's your home is a very emotional experience for people. And when you are staging it, when it does smell good, when it's hitting all the senses for people, it does make it easier for somebody to pull the trigger, move forward on your property as opposed to competition. And maybe they're emotional about it and they got the hearts in their eyes and they're like, I love this property. I mean, I think we've all been there. They say don't get emotional on real estate, and I don't know, we just closed on this condo here and we got to do some work to it, but I'm in love with this condo, and I shouldn't be, but I am.
Yeah, you just said it. You shouldn't be. I'm in love with the flip I'm doing right now. That is no longer a flip. I'm going to Airbnb it. We spoke about that. I mean, I fell in love with the house, and guys, don't listen to us. Don't fall in love with real estate. You got to like it. Oh, I know what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Historically, and I don't know whether you agree with me on this, but historically, I have found that your best offer, your first offer, is usually your best offer.
Yep.
So I want to tell you guys, don't be cocky. If you get what you want and, or it's not happening for you, you're not getting a flood of interested buyers, and then you get an offer and it's not what you wanted, try and make it work at all costs. Negotiate it out. See if you can't make it work, because so many times I've made the decision and my clients have made a decision that I'm going to wait for the next one. And like we both said, time's not on your side. And the other thing is, make sure your agents are following up with all leads and giving you the feedback.
Yeah.
Not all the time will they get it. We send out those automatic feedbacks. I'm sure you do, Steve, through the MLS. And sometimes agents don't fill them out, but you got to pick the phone up and say, hey, and they got to do it soon, because in a week is too late, because they looked at 300 houses between then. But yeah, and reach out. Don't be a stranger. We can point anybody in the right direction, right, Steve?
No doubt about it. So the five F's of successful house flipping: finding the deal, finding the cash, finding the contractors, finding the listing agent, and for sale strategies. Let me ask a final question. What type of property do you primarily buy and flip? Is it just the deal, or is it specifically single family, or what is it?
My strategies have really changed. So, I didn't liquidate everything like you did in this market. We were talking last week, and you had said that you were basically capitalizing on the high prices. I did sell property, but I'm actually starting to do more commercial. And for no other reason, I believe, residential is always good, but I think that we're going to start seeing some opportunities come along in the commercial space. Now, these are not for the beginner investor. You need buying power because, you're talking about higher dollar volume, and it's not smart to use your cash, even if you had it, especially with the low interest rates. I mean, you're looking for returns on other people's money, right? It's different strategies, but my strategies are, I believe the flip is hard. I mean, I don't want to discourage anybody, but I believe it's hard. Three types of flippers, in my opinion. It's the one that has the money, that has a full-time job, wants to hire somebody just to do it, and they're okay with making a percentage of return on their investment, but they write the checks. The other one would be the one that wants to learn how to do it, and they go and sweep up. They've got a job, they do a flip, they have somebody helping them with it. They want to be involved, go to Lowe's, Home Depot, pick stuff up, pick finishings out. And then there's the ballers, which are the ones that, have the crews, have their contractors. They're the ones that are best equipped to do flipping, in all reality. So, as my contracting business has really been winding down and my investing is really focusing more on what to buy that I can hold on to, I'm doing, I bought my office where I am. It's a multi-use. I built 2 buildings out in the back of the property. So I have an office that I could rent space out of if I wanted to. And then I built, there was one building that was there that I renovated, contractor building. And then I just built another 4,600 square foot building on it that I can rent out. I could probably cash flow $10,000 or $12,000 at this place a month. So, these are the kinds of things that I'm looking at right now. I think contracting businesses are going to thrive in years to come. And they can't go everywhere. You can't put commercial vehicles in neighborhoods, in most in a lot of neighborhoods. So, so my strategies are changing. Me personally, I do have clients. We have clients at Sachs Realty that are in the buy and hold strategies. So I think if you're going to fix stuff up, do buying distressed properties that you don't have to do a whole lot to. Distress meaning they need new kitchens and baths and paint and things like that, cleanup. And then holding them if the numbers work for rentals, I think is a good strategy. Flipping, you have to be careful.
Yeah. Good advice, brother. Man, well, I appreciate your time today. As mentioned, all that information is going to be in the description below to reach out to Todd and his brokerage out there if you guys need help in what area specifically in Maryland?
So we have really 9 county markets that we work in, basically in and around DC and Baltimore.
Okay.
So we don't really go to the Eastern Shore. We do have an amazing broker network where, if people are interested in the mountains or the beach, we have it all here in Maryland. But we have 2 offices. One is in Baltimore County, one is in Howard County. And they're 2 of the county markets that we serve in and around Baltimore and DC.
Nice. And be sure you guys go to Todd's YouTube channel, check out his podcast. I mean, he's got a lot of good people that are on there, wealth of information, and just be sure you check him out there. And I appreciate your time today, man.
Thank you so much, Steve. Pleasure being on your show.